Welcome to Business Minds. Today we're here at HEC Montreal to shoot a special episode, this time with not one but two guests who will interview each other in a special concept. They will be drawing cards where questions will be written on it. This episode is made in collaboration with La Chaise Bleue, the student web TV of HEC Montreal, as well as the AEHEC, the Students Association of HEC Montreal. Let's dive right into it. Come with me.
First interview?
First in a while. Yeah.
In
you?
A while. I've never been the interviewee, only the interviewer.
How are you feeling? Stress, 1 to 10?
I'd say probably a 5.
Okay.
I probably didn't prepare as much as I should have, but it will make it more candid.
Yeah.
What about you?
100% the same. I did read the questions
Excellent.
today, though, so
I did not.
have an idea of what to expect.
Okay, so you get a bit more preparation than I did. Should we introduce ourselves?
Let's do it.
You want to
For sure. So,
kick us off?
I mean, we've met, but my name is Marius. Graduated from HEC in 2017. I think we were in the same year. And since I've been working at a global software company called Meltwater, predominantly in sales. So that's, I guess, me in a sentence. How about yourself?
So my name is Frédérique, also HEC 2017. I guess my career path so far hasn't been as straightforward. Spent a few years working in accounting. That's what I studied at HEC. Got my CPA designation, but more recently moved to management consulting. So I've been at BCG for 3 years now.
Nice. Are you enjoying it?
I am.
Nice.
I really am. Now we get into the
do it.
serious things. So where did you grow up, and what kind of job were you dreaming of doing as a kid?
Yeah, so I moved around quite a bit. Growing up, I was born in Tokyo. My mother's Japanese, and then moved to France for a very short stint when I was just an infant. And I actually spent most of my childhood in China. So I spent 12 years in Beijing. I arrived in 1998, left in 2015, and we were actually there for my father's work. He was closely tied to the Olympics in 2008 in Beijing, so we spent quite a bit of time there. And then I moved to Ottawa. So that was a very drastic change.
Was that disappointing?
Yeah, I'd say disappointed was definitely be an adjective I'd use. But growing up, I wasn't like that typical child, and I don't know how typical it is, but like I didn't really have a job that I really wanted to do. I feel like there was like ebbs and flows as to what I wanted to, build my career around. But one thing that I knew from a very young age is I wanted to be not necessarily client-facing, but like use my interpersonal skills and just talk to people. So sales, I think, made quite a lot of sense, and that's the route that I've decided to take.
Wow.
But how about yourself? Where did you grow up?
I mean, I don't even want to tell my story because it's so boring compared to yours. So I was born and raised in Montreal, where I still am today, and that's about the gist of it. I think it was a pretty typical upbringing. I guess the one thing I never really thought I would end up in the corporate world. I think growing up, I was a dancer. I learned how to play piano. So I always kind of thought I would be in maybe a creative field, but somehow ended up going to business school and working more in a business-focused environment that still does require some creativity, which is probably the part that I enjoy the most about it. But yeah.
Nice. What kind of dancing did you do?
A bit of everything. So I did a lot of tap dancing, actually.
Okay.
Which I really liked. It's kind of like my fun fact when people ask me about what's my fun facts. I used to tap dance and did a bit of ballet and hip hop as well.
Nice. Well, it's really cool that you still get to tap into the creative side of.
Tap into.
Boom. That was not even intentional, but it worked out well. Nice. All right, my turn. Well, good segue. What led you to pursue business studies? And did you have a clear goal in mind of what you wanted to do afterwards?
I mean, clearly I did not because of the little career changes that happened there. But I think the reason I ended up in business school, like I do really enjoy solving problems. And I kind of went by elimination. I knew I didn't want to go into like healthcare, for example, or engineering. And to me, business school just gave me a lot of options. So not knowing what I wanted to do is kind of the reason I ended up going to business school. And then once I was here, I just really enjoyed my accounting classes. So I figured might as well continue, going down that route. It's like, I think, a pretty helpful toolkit to have, even if I wasn't going to end up in that profession necessarily, which has proven to be true. And then I think as I went, I just kind of figured out what I liked about it. So I like similar as you, the client-facing aspect of things, changing projects, changing teams. But I wanted to kind of step out of that accounting space and be more, be in an environment where I could have a bit more of a direct impact on how businesses do things, which is kind of how I ended up in consulting.
Nice. Very
And
cool.
what about you? How did you end up at HEC?
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of points in common between you and I. I think process of elimination is the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
I kind of ruled out sports pretty quickly. And then the sciences really weren't my thing. I never really liked math per se, even though math is a requirement to get into business school. But no, I think my father went to business school. My brother went to business school. A lot of people around me were going to business school. So I think that influenced it quite a bit. But I really don't regret it. I think similar to you, I think coming out of high school, and I think that's the case with a lot of people, like you're not really sure what you want to do just yet. And that's totally normal. You're like 17, 18. So the way I kind of saw it was like business school allowed me to open a lot of doors and also buy some time to figure out what it was that I actually wanted to do.
Yeah. It sounds funny that both of us were just like, oh, we ended up here because we didn't know what else to do, but we both managed to find our paths, and they're like pretty different ones. But
yeah, 100%. Yeah, and I think that's my outlook on life as well. Just like go with the flow, see where things take you. Obviously, you want to perform at your best, but
yeah,
I don't know, it just removes an element of stress. Personally, I
agree
find
with that. Very, very zen.
It's my Japanese side.
I like that. Okay, question 3. What kind of student do you think I was? I mean, we kind of knew each other, so there might be some bias, but...
Yeah, I mean, we definitely knew each other. I always felt that you were very balanced in a sense that, like, I would see you out at parties. I knew you were involved in the Chaise Bleue as well, so clearly you were looking for those extracurriculars. I don't know if you had a job while you were at university, but I had heard from people that, like, you also had really good grades, so... I don't know. In my mind, you were exemplary. Like you were doing all the right things.
That's very kind.
Yeah. How about you? I'm actually maybe a bit nervous to hear your answer.
No, honestly, it's very similar and very positive because I saw you get involved with the fashion shows, and I really liked how you would take things from business school that were not necessarily business, but that seemed more aligned with your interests outside of business and just made it your own. Mm-hmm. And that I found that very inspiring. First year, I didn't really know if I wanted to get involved into committees and stuff like that. And I think seeing the fashion show stuff that you were doing, I thought that's really cool how we can really mix his interests and schoolwork and the business world together. And I think you did that very beautifully.
Nice, thank you. Well, honestly, that year fashion show was I think to this day still one of my top years, just in terms of hustling, working really hard, but being truly passionate about what I was doing, and it just didn't feel like work.
Yeah.
When I look back, the amount of hours I spent on that, it was
huge.
Next level. It was a big production. Yeah, 100%. Cool. All right, what do we have here? According to my title and company, what do you think it is precisely that I do?
What's your title again?
So I actually changed it on LinkedIn today. But no, the title I've always had was Regional Sales Director at my company called Meltwater.
I feel like I'm going to embarrass myself answering this question. Sales Director, that's very broad.
100%.
As a title.
Yeah.
You probably oversee sales teams. Mm-hmm. Then it's it's hard to say if it's regionals or so maybe your direct reports would be sales rep that would be in charge of certain region and you're kind of managing all of that.
That is spot on.
Really?
Yeah, that's exactly what I do. And honestly, my role has evolved. Like I've been focused on specific regions in the past. I've been focused on specific verticals, specific product lines. So it has changed quite a bit, but like in a nutshell, I lead a sales team and we're just out there trying to impact the bottom line of the company.
And do you enjoy managing people, or did you prefer when you were more junior being like a salesperson? Like, I assume more out there.
Yeah, I think I obviously needed to be an individual contributor and like really hone in on what it takes to be a good salesperson before I can manage people. Because like a lot of what I do is just being a coach in many ways. But I definitely feel like being a sales manager comes more naturally than being an individual contributor.
Okay.
And it's actually what I enjoy the most because I think you can have a direct impact on people's results. So yeah, great question. I'm actually in reflections right now trying to figure out like which path I want to double down on in my career. Because there's always opportunities to learn as well and become a better salesperson in other companies as well. So yeah, no, I appreciate you asking that question. But I guess I have to try to guess what you're doing.
So my title is
Yeah.
consultant.
Okay. Okay, cool. I mean, right from the get-go, I feel like there's just so many different types of consultants. But I think that being a consultant at a place like BCG is very collaborative. Like, I would assume you work in teams. And like at the highest level, what you try to do is identify issues or challenges in your client base and offer strategic recommendations that you get from like market research. I want to say like customer insights. You've got to probably pull some of that and internal like business reviews that you have to run too. And yeah, help them solve their challenge. Is that?
That is also spot on. Cool. And it's hard to like, because I feel like going to recruiting events or talking to like students or just people in general that are interested into consulting, and it's always, oh, what's your like day-to-day job? And I'm like, I'm not sure. It's very broad, but I think you summarized it really well, where it's really just collaborating with clients, figuring out how we can help them, how we can officially, I think the mission or the vision is how to unlock their potential.
Yeah.
So help them identify where there can be improvement. They can come with very specific requests, or it can be a bit more ambiguous, where we kind of work together to see where there is potential for improvement, and then we work as a team to offer recommendations, path forwards, and so on to help them achieve what they need to achieve.
Do you have to uncover the challenge for your clients and like implicate it? Or do they typically come to you directly and are like, hey, we're struggling with this, can you help me?
It's a good question. Both happen.
Yeah.
There's often projects that we kind of call diagnosis, where they'll just come in general and be like, oh, we want to improve our overall like financial health.
Yeah.
But then where do we start? And then there's a whole investigation phase of it that's often very intellectually stimulating, but also quite challenging because you don't necessarily know what you're looking for. So you need to cover a lot of ground, and those can be pretty intense. And then there's other scenarios where they have something very specific in mind, like we need support to do XYZ project that's very specific, and then we can have a role that's either like project management or helping them with research or access, because we have so many resources just being a large global firm, or access to data, access to benchmarks that they might not have access to.
Okay.
So it can really be either for now.
Right. Cool.
Okay, so I guess discussing our first jobs or first moves after university, could you describe what was your first interviewing process?
Yeah, so everything I'm about to share is probably what I would not recommend somebody to do. So I was a little bit slower on the job hunting after work. I had a side gig and it was going pretty well, and I was like, oh, I kind of want to maximize that as much as possible before going into the corporate world. But once I was serious about finding a corporate job, I actually got an inbound from this person called Molly. I'll never forget her. She's the reason why I'm working where I'm working. And she was like, hey, like we're doing a group interview in Montreal for a sales role for this SaaS company. And I was like, okay, cool, yeah, well, I'll be there. but I had a trip to Japan and I literally landed the morning of my interview. So I was completely jet lagged, unprepared, didn't really know what the company did, which is terrible preparation. And I remember showing up at the W, it was at the hotel, and I saw just 20 candidates sitting in the common room, and a lot of them were HEC alum, or like some big shots at HEC, or at least people that like I always looked up to. So I was like, oh my God, this is serious. Like, Marius, come on, pull it together. And it was the first time I was doing a group interview as well. So we were like 20 people in a room. We all had to present ourselves. We also had to do a passion speech, which was quite peculiar, just doing it with 20 strangers.
Yeah.
But all around now, looking back, like I totally understand why we had that interview process and structure, because like you could really see how people work with other people. And I mean, that's super important in sales. It's very collaborative.
So you see that as a plus, that it was a group interview?
I think, yeah, I really see it as a plus. And it's also very efficient when you think about it. You can sort of weed out the candidates that aren't going to cut it or don't fit the company culture. So no, I really enjoyed that. And we actually still have that group interview now.
Yeah. So are you running them now? Have you like interviewed?
Yeah, I've run a few. It's super interesting just being like, I was literally in your shoes 3-4 years ago. I really enjoy interviewing. So yeah, that was my first experience. How about yourself? I guess I'm as interested about PwC, but even more interested about your first interview at BCG.
Yeah, I'd say like consulting interviews, most firms have a similar process, and they're not traditional interviews like we would expect for, I guess, other roles. But a part of it is doing a case study. So it's a one-on-one interview, and then the first part of it, you actually have to solve a case, so like a pretend, client situation, and then they can see how you structure your thoughts. If you're creative, if you think outside the box. And I was so intimidated before and so stressed. There's like resources online that you can find. Like I practiced a bunch of cases before, but you never really know like what the problem's gonna be, how you're gonna react in the moment. But it was a lot more collaborative than I thought it would be. Like it was more of a conversation and building kind of a solution together, more than me just like pitching this solution to a problem that was thrown at me. And I actually enjoyed it quite a bit. And then the second part was the more traditional like fit interview with behavioral questions. And then you go through 2 rounds of 2 interviews of the sort. So it's a pretty lengthy process. But it's nice because doing that case, I find that you really get to know your interviewer, and then yourself, you're almost interviewing the firm in the sense that you can see if you're a good fit and if you're enjoying working with the person that's in front of you. And usually that's kind of reciprocal. Like now that I'm also on the other side of it, interviewing people, I'm enjoying it because I'm like, oh, are we working well together? Like, could I see this person in my team? Would I enjoy it? So it was pretty stressful, a lot of preparation behind it, but I think it's a good process, and I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I was really stressed about it, but
yeah, that sounds very similar. We also had to do a case study. But the expectation was for us to work with other candidates, and like what they were looking for is like, are people team players, are people collaborative, etc. So
I feel like I would be a lot more intimidated doing it with another candidate. Like, was the dynamic like, were people positive and like collaborative in general, or would you find they were trying to sabotage?
I think most people caught on that like they were evaluating us based on our ability to work as a team. But at the same time, like it's an interview, there's a few spots left at the end of the day. So it did get quite competitive, and you could see some personalities that were perhaps a little bit more dominant, like sort of express themselves a little bit louder than other people. So it was an interesting dynamic. But I really enjoyed the process. And then after that, there was like individual interviews similar to your case where, they dug deep into some of the struggles that you faced in the past, how you overcame it, because sales is quite tenacious, I guess, very similar to consulting. So I think interview processes can be run so many different ways, but I've had a pretty good experience.
We survived.
And we got the job.
So
it's a win. All right, can you tell us the story of your career so far?
Well, I might repeat myself a bit. I feel like we've probably covered it a bit with the previous questions, but so started in accounting, I enjoyed the class, figured might as well do my whole CPA. I love studying. So went through this whole process, spent my 2 years of practical experience to get my CPA designation, working at PwC in audit. I also had a short stint at CDPQ when I worked where I work in financial reporting. And then I was just kind of looking for something a bit different where I could have more impact. And the way I kind of did my transition, I actually came back to HEC to work as a teaching assistant. So I worked as a TA here for the accounting department for a year. Okay. And then I kind of toyed with the idea of doing my master's then. So I signed up for a few classes. And as I was doing that, I started getting the recruitment emails like as a master's student. And that's how I learned about the consulting firms and then went through the whole consulting recruitment process and been there since then.
Okay, very nice.
And what about yours?
Every time I talk about my career, a lot of people, a common comment I get is like, oh, you've always worked at this one company. And I think it's pretty rare, especially in our generation. Like, I think people like to hop around, especially in software sales. Like, it's known to have like pretty poor attrition rates. But I would say the reason why I've stayed this long is because I really got to move around quite a bit within the company. I've switched departments many times, switched teams, went from, learning how to sell and run an entire process by myself to then coaching people on it, getting over imposter syndrome, like the imposter syndrome that I think we all get once we start like leading teams and stuff. So it's been a very steady story so far in terms of who I've worked with, but it's also been quite rocky because there's been so many movements and changes internally. And if I'm still there, it's because I'm still learning. There's still a lot that I want to figure out. I still feel challenged, and I'm sort of part of the furniture now of the company in many ways because I have probably a lot of seniority compared to most people on average. So there's also perks to that as well, which is definitely a reason why I'm still around. It's your turn.
My turn.
Yeah.
I'm very bad at this. I need to... Ooh, wild card.
Oh, boy.
It's an easy one. So what's your most unique or unusual hobby?
Okay, I'm going to need a quick...
If you have any.
Unique or unusual?
There will be no judgment on whether it's boring or weird.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know how unusual it is, but I really enjoy being in the studio with my partner. She's a DJ and she produces a lot of her tracks. And I think we talked about it briefly, but I've always been quite creative. I really enjoy that side of, myself and just what's available out there. And I really enjoy producing music. I do not know anything about Ableton or all of the stuff, but I really like how we work together at times. She makes me listen to specific demos and I share my feedback. So that's been like a very
really cool.
fun hobby that I've been exposed to for the last couple of years.
It's neither boring nor weird. You're a lot cooler than me.
I want to know your hobby.
I'm going to sound even more lame now. I should have gone first. I'm really into pottery, but I feel like that's like trendy now.
That's super
There's
trendy.
like a lot of like TikToks of people doing pottery.
Yeah.
I've been doing it for a while. I just really enjoy, I like doing things with my hands. I find it's very therapeutic, just being very focused on doing things. So every week I go to the studio. I'm still not really good at it, but I'm mostly doing it for the moment more than the outcome and the pieces. So
very cool. Have you mastered the mug? I feel like that's challenging because it has like an extra piece. I guess.
So it's actually not. Yeah, you put it at the end, so it's not too bad. I've had definitely a few that just broke or fell during the. I don't know if we call it the cooking process, but the. I'm blinking.
Like when you put it in the oven
when
and
you
like
put it in the kiln, yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
Where'd you go for that?
It's a place on the plateau called the Atelier Format.
Okay.
would recommend. They do.
I've honestly actually always wanted to try pottery, so I will definitely put it on the list of things to do. This is a cool one. Did you feel you had to prove yourself a lot when starting your first job?
That's a good one. I think yes, and I think to bring your point back on the imposter syndrome, I think that's very real. Especially, I'm sure you can relate to that as well, like in like client-facing contacts, where I'm this like 20-something-year-old girl that doesn't know anything, and I'm gonna tell like a CEO how to run his business. So there's definitely a lot of that. I think with time in general, it goes away. And there's a lot. It's a topic that I like to discuss a lot as well with my peers, and realizing that kind of everyone feels it and feels like they're not good enough, that everyone else is smarter than them, but then we all feel that way, so we're probably kind of all the same. So I think it's helpful to really just like discuss it, have it out there, but that's definitely something I struggled with a bit more at the beginning, and I'm kind of starting to overcome in a sense.
What's helping you get over the imposter syndrome, if you don't mind me asking?
I would say I do try to like talk to myself a lot and be like, I know as much as anyone else here. There's no reason why I wouldn't talk if they can talk. Because a lot of the time I would find myself sitting in a room with people that are more senior than me, or even a room full of men, and then thinking about something that I would want to say, not say it, because I'm like, oh, that's like stupid. Someone would say it and everyone would be like, ah, yes, like that's brilliant. I'm like, damn it.
Yeah.
I should have said. So I try to think about those moments and be like, I actually have thoughts that make sense. Yeah. I should, let myself speak them. So it's really a lot of like, I don't know. It's hard to explain, just like convincing myself that. It's
like you have the answer. It's just, it must be like a little frustrating sometimes when you're about to say it and then somebody else brings it up.
Yeah. Do you have any tips or success stories of?
For the imposter syndrome thing?
Yeah, or in general, like how you felt.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely felt a lot of like internal and external pressure when I first started. I think like most roles, but I think even more in sales is like you're constantly being compared to your peers, because it's like an environment completely based off meritocracy, in a sense that like if you don't sell, like the numbers will show.
Yeah.
And like you can't BS your way through that. So yeah, I definitely felt quite a bit of pressure when I first started, because like at the end of the day, we're dealing with people as well, and like it's not a perfect science. Things can go south. I've had contracts out for clients where the guy got in a car accident and literally can't sign his contract. Stuff like that that's like completely out of your control. Yeah. So yeah, no, I think that's part of like the external pressure that I feel. But no, I definitely felt like I had to prove myself 100%. It was very competitive, and I still do now. It's everlasting. I don't think it'll ever stop. And I think the moment when you stop trying, I'm not saying that you should stop trying to prove yourself. Like you don't need to always prove yourself, but I think you always need to like strive for the best version of yourself, which I guess you could draw a parallel to proving yourself. It's a little bit similar.
That's a good point. Like if you stop wanting to try, you might not be in the right place anymore. Maybe you need.
I think especially in our fields where it's like you either go up or you're out.
Yeah. Is it? Yes.
I think so.
Okay, that's kind of in the same vein. Are you good at selling yourself? And do you have what are your best tips to do so?
Yeah, I always found that very ironic. I'm good at selling products. I'm not so great at selling myself, but I'm getting better. I think it's important to know how to sell yourself. I'd say for like tips, you just always gotta understand like what the value is to whoever's you're trying to sell yourself to. Mm-hmm. I think it's as simple as that. Once you understand like what the value is, then just focus on that and just deliver. So that's sort of how I see it. Do you feel like you're good at selling yourself?
That one's a tough question. I think in general, a lot of more junior people or younger people, and not to repeat myself, but like women in general, like I think we tend to not sell ourselves enough, try to, because we don't want to brag, we want to be humble, we don't necessarily believe in ourselves as much as we should. So I'm probably not great at it, but I think as I kind of progress on like my confidence and fighting that imposter syndrome, I probably get better at that too.
Okay, so how do you handle a bad day or a bad week at work, and how do you recover from it?
It's a good question too, and something would love to hear your tips and advice on that after. I do try. For me, what works best is doing things that I like having that thing to look forward to, so I can kind of compartmentalize work. So knowing, for example, I'm like, this is a terrible day, I hate it, but tomorrow evening I'm going to go to the pottery studio and like just do that, and like I can focus a bit more. Or doing like working out, as like cliche as it sounds, I find it so important to keep some balance with like just like life hygiene, if I could call it that, in general, to just not fall into a rabbit hole of like being upset, being stressed, being anxious about work, and having that separation of like, I'm doing things for me, and that makes me feel better. And that's also, I would say, how I recover from it, really trying to just disconnect, focus on what I like, being active, being healthy, to keep I sound like a life coach. I'm like, keep a clear mindset. Like, I drink my kombucha. But, yeah, I think that's how I try to handle difficult days the best.
Yeah. And in moments like that, do you feel like having a structure, like, okay, I'm going to work out in the mornings of those, like, does that help you? Or are you kind of like, I don't even want to set anything up because I just don't know the kind of workload I'm going to be
No, I'd say it helps 100%. Okay. And I think that I'm sometimes even more structured in these stretch.
Okay.
Because cool. I'm like, I have to, so I do it. So then I'll like even stick to like my workout schedule more, because I'm like, this is when I have to do it, and I'm just gonna get up and do it. Yeah. Versus if I'm a bit more like in a chill week, I'm just gonna sit on my couch and not do anything.
So maybe there's like a bit of an element of control too. Like you may not have control in your day-to-day at work, so you want to have control outside of work. So everything is a little bit more balanced.
But yeah.
Very cool.
I feel like sales must be very stressful and hard to disconnect from.
Yeah, I had 6 years of monthly quotas, meaning that every month, we would start from zero and had to reach a specific target. And it's so interesting, but like it helped me track time flying by a lot better, because I always think of it from like a monthly perspective.
Yeah.
And like, the reason why I was asking about like if you have tools to prevent it is because like I needed to develop those tools to make sure that I was coming in on what we call closing week. That's how we call the last week of the month or the last week of the quarter, where like the intensity is at an all-time high. So in preparation for those moments that are inevitable, we know they're going to happen because we're so structured. I always try to like make sure that I have some time for myself during that week, so I can sort of level set and relax a little bit. But I think at the end of the day, with stress in general, I always try to focus on like what you can control and what's just out of your control, and that just brings a lot of solace. And I guess my focus now as like a sales leader is like making sure that that's very well understood with my team, because like the last thing I want is for people to just burn out or feel completely exhausted with work. So I guess it does help when you try to make sure your team isn't too stressed to actually regulate your own stress in the process.
That's true, yeah.
So I think I'm doing much better now than I was doing before, that's for sure. Yeah. So trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. My turn. What is the most important skill you have acquired in your career so far?
I think being a self-starter has been the best skill, in a sense that like I kind of build my own schedule. I build my own like outreach strategy. So let's say you have a very dry pipeline and you are nowhere near hitting your target, then it's like all about being a self-starter and recognizing that, and then figuring out a game plan to fix that issue. And all of that, sure, you'll always have some micromanagers that will tell you, oh, you got to do this, that. Yeah. But like, I'm lucky to work in an organization where they're not like that. So it's all about like, okay, here's the issue at hand. Here's how I'm going to solve for it. And here's what needs to happen in order to actually solve the issue. So I'd say self-starter is definitely the skill that I've learned and leveraged the most in my career so far.
Have you ever wanted to be an entrepreneur or like start your own business?
I've thought about it. I don't think I would do it by myself, but I would definitely do it with a partner or a team. So no, it definitely crosses my mind. I have a brother who's like very, very, he's a massive entrepreneur. He loves to create businesses and stuff. And I have a lot of friends that are also starting their own businesses. So it's definitely something that I've thought about, and where self-starter as a skill could be quite handy. But how about yourself? Like, what would you say is...
I would say probably navigating ambiguity and being more comfortable in it. I find that probably similar to the way you just alluded to, of like, there's a pipeline is there, I need to figure something out to, action on it. Like in consulting, it's often like there's no answer. It's not like a process, process-based job. So there's a lot of, just brainstorming, thinking, trying to figure out how we get to an answer. And I think I've gotten, not that I've gotten necessarily good at it, but I've gotten good at feeling okay with it and not being anxious about, I don't know what I'm going to do today. And I don't know what my project's going to look like and how it's going to be structured. So I think that helps with driving even a better answer, because you're not, overwhelmed or taken by stress. And I think that's something I'm glad I'm getting to.
Did it take you a long time to come up with what that skill was when we were first exposed to the questions and you read through them?
I just thought about it now, I must say, because when I first read the questions, I tried to not think it, to have prepared, and I kind of forgot about that one. So no, I did not.
Very cool.
What about you? Had you thought about it?
I also thought about it on this spot
so
too.
Spontaneous.
Yeah. Well, we have to. All right. How has your social life changed since entering the professional world?
My social circles, there's definitely a lot of new adult friends that I have from work. So every place I worked, I've kept some really close friends, which I'm really glad about, because you spend so much time with coworkers. At some point, you become friends. And there's also, we have a lot of, because we work a lot and spend so much time together, there's a big culture, I would say, at BCG, and I think everywhere. It was the same at PwC, and I think it would be the same in a lot of other firms, of case team dinners, just a lot of, there's a social aspect to work that's pretty prominent, because it's important to get along well, because we're going to work together. It's important there's affiliation, that we, get along with people in the office, people we work with. So there's a much bigger portion of my social life that's work related, but I don't dislike it. I do get along really well with a lot of people from the office, and I value those friendships. And it's fun, going to the office and you in the kitchen and you're just catching up with colleagues, but it feels like you're catching up with friends. But I do find, I'm still very close friends with, as I mentioned earlier, friends from my childhood that I would dance with, friends from school, and I do really try to always have time for them and to, keep those friendships in my life.
How do you navigate for those friends from perhaps high school or middle school that don't have the same work schedule as you? How do you find a way to stay in touch and make it work? And do they understand your work schedule and the amount of hours you probably put in?
No, I would say they do. I'd say it's been pretty. So I have friends that are in, I'd say, all industries. A lot of my friends are nurses, hairstylists. There's a lot of not corporate friends and corporate friends as well that know what consulting is or have similar jobs. But in all cases, we have a lot of group chats that are just kind of active all the time. So we do catch up a lot through that, and then we just try to plan in advance of when we're going to see each other. And it often turns out that we're pretty good, I think, at finding time together. Even going on trips. I like traveling with friends. So
that's good. And you spend quality time because you're literally with them the whole time. Were there moments where you didn't have a social life because of workload or just intensity of work?
Honestly, I would say no. I think I value it so much. I like to work. I'm driven by my work, but I'm not a workaholic. Like to me, I would never go to a point, I think, where I would give it up. So I don't think I've ever had no social life. There's times where, of course, it was, wasn't every day of the week that I was seeing friends, but would always try to see someone outside of work or do something. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You bring such a good point. Like, I love it when you introduce, like when you go from introducing somebody as a colleague to introducing them as a friend, because like, obviously we're pretty open people, we're pretty friendly people, we're bound to make friends, but like I think a lot of companies do a really good job at hiring people that are similar to you as well, so it's just that much easier to make friends at work.
Yeah. So has it been similar to you? Did you find a lot of it?
Yeah, 100%. Like I'd say like a good portion of my friends now started as colleagues and we just got along from the get-go. I think when you're in the trenches together and you're like rallying behind the same goal, it just builds camaraderie like quite automatically. So that's been good. But like I've also been keeping in touch with obviously friends from university, and similar to you, I'm quite big on work-life balance. Like I want to be able to have a bit of both. So yeah, I'd say my social life actually improved when I started working, which is kind of nice. Like I love that we don't have to worry so much about having a homework or like paperwork to submit like the next week. We would probably most likely do during the weekend, or at least I would, because I would procrastinate all the time. But yeah, it's cool.
Great.
Super.
If you could change one thing in today's work culture, what would it be?
Yeah, that question was I think is a tough one. I think that it really depends on the industry. Like work cultures change quite a bit. Yeah, I think I need to think about this one a little bit more. Do you really have an answer?
Yeah, we'll go to the next one.
Yeah, you don't like that one?
Well, I just don't know if it's like, I don't know, like work culture, like in the sense of, like, do we work too much? Do we is it the like performance, or are we talking about like industries, or, because like one thing I would say that's probably not what the question meant, but I will say it, is that one thing that I would change about the business world is how financial results is the only thing that's valued. Like to me, and I'm making it my life mission, hopefully one day I will make some change, but anything that's an impact, whether it's social, environmental, or financial, should always be considered on the same footing, and we're so far from that. So if I could snap my fingers and change something about the business world, that would be it. But I don't know if it's that's the culture we're talking about.
No, but I think that's a great point, and it's usually reflected in like people working day in and day out with no real intention. They're just doing it because they're told that's the way to do it, which just leads to people working with very little purpose, which actually kind of perpetuates the issue when we think about it. But no, you bring a really good point. I will advocate for you, and you will make that a reality.
We will change the world.
Cool. Oh, wild card. Who's your role model and why?
That's a good question. Is it cliche if I say RBG?
Who?
RBG? Ruth, I'm going to misspell her name. Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
No, I think it's a great... It's a great example.
I think that she led with a way, and that's something that she said at some point. I will misquote her. I apologize. But it was something around lead people in a way that you, or inspire people in a way that you want lead in a way that would inspire others. Mm-hmm. I should probably look it up. But anyways, I just like how, it's about act in a way that people will want to be better. Like it's not about being authoritarian or telling people what to do, but just showing by example and bringing so much positive change to the world just by the way she was and the things that she did. And if one day I could have minuscule portion of the impact that she did, I will be very happy.
It's a bit like a treat others like you want to be treated almost.
Pretty much the adult version of what we tell children in preschool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a really good example. Yeah, I would say for myself, I would say I'll have a couple for different reasons.
Yeah.
But I think the first people that come to mind is, I think my brother is very inspiring in a sense that he just actions things. You know, as soon as he has an idea or I pitch him an idea, he will do his research and just like try to move forward and like just make a little like, doesn't even have to be a plan, but just act on it, you know, and just move it one step closer to whatever goal you're working towards. So that I'm very admirated of. And the other person that comes to mind is my fiancée, Gab. She's a very, very, I think, intelligent risk taker. And like she really sees her life as like a very finite moment, which it obviously is. We'll all die at some point. But she's very good at just maximizing her time that she has, and she does it by just taking the risks that just make sense for her and makes her happy, which I think we can all learn.
Wow. It sounds like people you should go into business with. Intelligent risk taker, action-oriented.
Yeah, and then I guess I can come in with the creative and the
self-starter.
Cells. Yeah, exactly.
I think we got something there.
I think there's definitely something there.
Oh, but that's amazing. Is your brother older than you?
He is. Yeah, he is. He also lives in Montreal, and he also works in sales as well. But he started a couple companies, and yeah, he'll make it big one day. I have no doubt.
That's great. Great. Debate. Do you believe that you have to love your job in order to perform well?
Such a good question. Has a lot of layers to it. I think that love may be a strong word. I think to be good at your job, you need to care. In order to care, you need to understand why you're doing the job to begin with. That's sort of how I see it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Would you agree, or do you have a different
I would say
view on it?
for myself, yes. I think to me, I do need that to perform well, but I don't know if it's a universal concept. I think that's like a question that's hard to debate on. I think it's actually quite personal.
Yeah.
And I think everyone can do a job, well enough, even without loving it, just by, we're all humans, we need a paycheck, and then if you have some KPIs to check to get that, like you'll do it.
Yeah.
But it certainly helps.
For sure. And I think it's a slippery slope as well, where I think there's a lot of emphasis around passion and loving what you do. And like, obviously, best case scenario, you do. I just think that a lot of people don't have that luck or that opportunity. And unfortunately, a lot of people are always on the hunt to find that one job that they'll love, that has all the perfect conditions, which actually is a bit of a detriment to yourself in a sense that you don't even allow yourself to spend the time necessary to figure out that maybe you will love what you do. It's just that you're going through hardship now, and you just got to tough it out and go up maybe one rank and then realize that like, oh, I'm actually a lot happier in this position now.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. I think people move very quickly. We want instant gratification. It's not our fault. Like, we literally get everything at our fingernail, and we can just...
It's our generation.
Yeah.
It's not our fault.
Yeah. Not our fault, for sure. Another debate question. What is the most important thing young professionals should focus on at the start of their career?
Tough one. I mean, I wish I knew. I would do that.
Clearly, you're doing something right.
The most important thing to focus on, I think it might be like a mix of growth, like finding learning opportunities in what you're doing, and figuring out what you like, because like as you said, like we're never gonna. I don't think there's a perfect job that exists where you love everything and then you're excellent at it and everything's going to be perfect. So in every situation, if you can focus on what are the pieces that I enjoy and that I like, that I'm good at, and that I can improve at. I think that can be very helpful in kind of figuring out what's the right path for what's next or
For sure.
the rest of your career.
And it makes it more transferable too, right? Like if we know those elements, we can probably find them somewhere else as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Like,
no, that's
what do
super
you think
interesting.
is most important.
I don't know. I mean, like, I sort of grew up in a very like feedback-focused education system, I would say. At school, at home, even at work, like we're always trying to focus on the things we don't do as well, and we try to fix that. I think what young professionals should instead be doing is try to identify what they're really good at as early as possible and just double down on that skill, because that can act as a maximizer as opposed to just focusing on like where you're not super strong at, which just makes you then a little bit average in everything else. So I think it's all about identifying that and allocating the right energy and time to it.
That's a good point. It's true. We should not forget about our strengths.
Yeah.
We should focus on them too.
100%. 100%. I mean, that's what sets you apart. And that's usually what comes most naturally too, which is always good.
Another debate. So far, we're not debating too much. I feel like we're pretty aligned in our opinions.
Yeah, we're creepily aligned on a lot of things.
So what has been most useful for you to get a promotion?
I think results.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as simple as that, or at least like in the company that I work in and just in sales in general, I think it's a very results-driven promotion track usually. But I think beyond results, I think just building strong social capital internally is very important. And I think the way you do that is literally by just showing up when you say you'll show up and just doing the things that you said you'd do. I think being accountable and being reliable are like really, really important traits to focus on.
Yeah. Because I think there's a big part of it that maybe we don't think about that's kind of about our brand, if you want to say, in our company, of like, are you the person that's flaky and that like you never know if they're going to do what they say they're going to do? And that probably weighs a lot in the balance of whether the person's going to get a promotion or not.
When you're not in a room and you have colleagues talking about you, what do you think they say about you?
Oh, I don't want to think about that. But yeah.
It's like, I mean, that's the ultimate question when you want to think about what your brand is, for sure.
Yeah. Now I'm going to have nightmares. Right.
Do you think it is actually possible to have work-life balance?
Yes. I do. I think you just have to set boundaries. And then it depends, like if you don't want to work, if you're someone that for you work-life balance means working, 30, 35 hours a week, don't choose a profession or a career that requires more than that. Like there are so many jobs, so many career paths out there. So like work-life balance is really, everyone has a different definition.
Yeah, for sure.
I think both of us are in pretty like high-paced environment, so it can be more challenging, I'm sure, but there's always a way to make it work, whether it's taking extended time off. I found like last year I took 2 months of unpaid leave, basically, like between two projects.
Wow.
Just because I felt like I needed a reset, and I just wanted that. I went to Japan, actually.
So cool. For 2
great.
months?
I went for a month.
Wow.
So I think there's always a way to make it work, but then like be conscious of your choices and what works for you when you choose a job as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's such a good point. Like work-life balance is so subjective. I think everybody has different thresholds as well. Like some people are happy working 60 hours and just want to spend a couple hours of quality time and that's enough for them. Mm-hmm. I guess it's all about how much you want to invest in your work to have the standard of life that you're after as well. And I guess like everybody asks themselves that question. I think a lot of people ask themselves that question as well during the pandemic when things shut down. They were kind of like, why am I doing what I'm doing?
Lots
why am
of
I killing
crisis.
myself at work? Exactly. So yeah, I guess it's always about figuring out what's right for you.
Yeah. And it changes over time too. Mm-hmm. Like you can want to do that for a few years, then move on to something else. Like it's just being true to yourself.
Yeah. for now, and then we're gonna have to be true to our family, our partners, our kids. So I just feel like our work-life balance, like barometer, will just change over time as well.
Yeah.
I guess we're all learning that stuff.
We are. La chaise bleue question. All right, so what's your best memory at HEC Montreal, and how did it impact your life afterwards?
I mean, I'm gonna go back to a fashion show. I'd say the memory that I'll just remember the whole time is, at the end of the show when I walked down the catwalk and thanked everybody and just like had a moment to internalize what had just happened. Just like a year of hustling and like a year of grinding, and just seeing the final results is like a memory that I'll probably cherish for a very long time.
And I'm sure it's been very helpful. That was pretty much a professional experience while you're in school. Like you probably learned a ton that you can apply to.
No, I mean, it's maybe not best marketing for HEC, but I do feel like I learned as much in that one event that I did during my 4 years of school. Yeah. How about you? What's the memory that?
I would say it's an opportunity from HEC, but it was going on exchange.
Yeah.
To me, was just, it's so cliche again. Like I'm that person that's like, I studied abroad in Australia 10 years ago and I'm never gonna get over it. But I truly, like, it was so, you're like, I was 19 years old, always been in Montreal. To me, that was such like an experience that took me like way out of my comfort zone. And I grew so much from it. And I made some friends there that are still my best friends today, that I talk to every single day, because you just go through these like crazy experiences at a pretty, interesting time in your life, like early 20s, you're searching for yourself. What do you want? And you just go on this like adventure by yourself. So I would say that was by far like my best thing I did during my undergrad.
Was it your first like big trip away from
Pretty
family?
much. Like I had traveled for like, 2-3 weeks here and there, but I never gone somewhere like by myself for, an extended period of time. So it was like a big thing for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of my bigger regrets, is like not having gone on an exchange.
But it sounds like you've had such an interesting life, like traveling places, that maybe you wouldn't have
Yeah, maybe that played a bit of a role. It did feel like going to Montreal was a bit of an exchange in some ways, but I think that's just the safe answer. That's what I tell myself, to not feel too much regret for not doing it.
Well, it's never too late. You can do. You can go live in Australia for 6 months.
Yeah, that could be a lot of fun.
I'm sure it would. I would do it again.
I would definitely pick your brain on things to do. All right, fast questions now. As a consultant, how good have you become at building nice slides on PowerPoint?
So good. I have shortcuts and I can just align everything with a few clicks, and it's my biggest pride. I make beautiful PowerPoints.
How many liters of coffee do you drink per week?
Too many. I probably have 4 coffees a day. I'm trying to cut down by drinking tea in the afternoon. So 4 cups of 250 milliliters a day. Is it? That's probably too much.
Wait, 4 cups in the morning then, because you're drinking tea in the afternoon?
Throughout the day. Well, I'm trying.
Okay.
Maybe 3 now.
Okay.
So probably close to 5 or 6 liters.
Wow.
I'm concerned for me.
I am concerned for you as well. Do you think you will be a millionaire one day?
I mean, I hope so, but I'd be fine if not, but...
No, you don't really care?
I don't really care.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. And who's the most famous person you've ever met?
I don't think I've ever met anyone famous. My parents' dog was an actor. He was in Fugueuse.
Fugueuse, okay. Wow.
The Quebec series.
Okay, very cool. It's good to know. What's the best perk about your job?
I'd say the travel. I get to travel a bunch, and then I get points, so I can travel for myself after.
You get to keep the points for yourself?
Yes.
Nice. Where was your last trip?
Fun or travel or work?
For work.
Calgary.
Nice.
Yeah. So lots of points, because
Yeah.
it's a long flight.
So you get to look at it. What are you most proud of in your career so far?
I would say doing the move of leaving accounting when I realized it wasn't for me, instead of getting stuck.
Very cool.
As a salesperson, how good have you become at small talk?
Pretty damn good.
It's a good skill to have. What would make you change career to go work in the fashion industry?
That's $1 million question.
Is it $1 million?
That would definitely help. I would have to change my lifestyle drastically, I think.
What are you most proud of in your career so far?
Honestly, retaining every member of my team while going through a big restructure.
That's great. Do you think you'll be a millionaire one day?
I think so, but it won't just be from my own earnings. I'm definitely counting on my partner to.
Nice.
Yeah.
Who's the most famous person you've ever met?
I want to say recently, Diplo.
So much cooler than my parents' dog. Once again, you're the coolest of us. And what's the best perk about your job?
Being able to run your own business. What is the best piece of advice you ever received?
I would say I once had a mentor tell me it's as important to be put as much effort in getting better as you put into mentoring others. And I thought that was a really good one.
Did you feel like you weren't doing that before you got that piece of advice?
Maybe not necessarily. I was pretty junior, and I think I assumed that meant I had nothing to give, but that's not necessarily the case. It can be upward feedback, it can be to peers. So I think that was something that kind of stuck with me, that I need to make a conscious effort to actually, be there if others need, or, spend time into investing time in others, not just in myself.
That's cool.
What's yours?
I'd say focus on what you can control. I think that's what kept my head above water and
in
stressful
life in
environment. Life in general too. Just makes you a lot more peaceful, a lot more zen with everything.
Last question. Oh, I like that one. On the day you retire, what do you wish to have accomplished?
Kept the people that I wanted close to me. As simple as that. I don't really think about my career. I don't think my career will come to mind at that moment. But yeah, no, just keeping the people that matter close and not losing sight of those individuals. Yeah.
And what matters.
How about you?
I mean, I didn't know what I was going to answer, and now I want to steal your idea. I think that's a great way to put it. It's not necessarily career objectives, but looking back and not having regrets on neglecting people in my life or sacrificing things I shouldn't have for the sake of a job. And I think just finding happiness in what I do and recognizing when I need to make a change.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. It's like every time there's like a big decision or a big moment of stress, it's like, am I really going to care about this when I'll be 80 or hopefully I retire sooner than that. But
I would hope.
yeah, I think it's good to just like remind yourself constantly. And I think our generation, like the newer generations coming into, have that top of mind a lot more than I think our parents maybe did.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Cool. Then my last question. If you could change one thing in this interview, what would it be?
The color of the chair. Because it doesn't match my outfit. What about you?
I can only select one. Oh, God, no.
Your co-interviewee.
One, I guess, I know, it's been a wonderful experience. I guess maybe finding people that are less alike and maybe would have debated on some topics a little bit more.
We agree too much.
Yeah. Well, it's not a bad thing. It was a good conversation.
Yeah, glad we had it.
Yeah.
Should we do it in French?
That's not what we planned.
Okay.
That's another way of saying no.